When Detective Maria Santos arrived at the Martinez estate that August morning, the sprinklers were still running. The lawn sparkled with dew under the rising California sun. Perfectly manicured hedges casting long shadows across imported Italian stone. Everything looked pristine except for the Range Rover in the circular driveway. Driver's door hanging open, engine still warm, and a single Louboutin heel lying sideways on the pavement. Its owner, 34-year-old Isabella Martinez, was nowhere to be found. But inside the house, her husband was eating breakfast. And when Maria asked where his wife was, he looked up from his omelet and said something that would haunt her for years. "I assumed she went for a run." Isabella Martinez didn't go for runs. Anyone who knew her could tell you that. She was the kind of woman who woke at 5:30 every morning not to exercise, but to put on full makeup before her husband saw her. She wore designer everything, even to the grocery store. She'd grown up poor in a studio apartment in East LA, watching her mother work 3 jobs to keep them fed, and she'd promised herself that one day she'd live differently. By the time she was 30, she'd built a thriving interior design business, appeared on local morning shows, and married Daniel Martinez, a real estate developer 15 years, her senior, who owned half the luxury condos in Newport Beach. From the outside, Isabella had everything, but the people closest to her knew the truth. Perfection always has cracks. You just have to know where to look. Isabella was brilliant, driven, and exhausting to be around. She talked fast, moved faster, and had opinions about everything from thread count to city zoning laws. Her best friend, Lucia Reyes, described her as a hurricane in Chanel. But beneath the designer armor was a woman who still kept her mother's food stamp card in her wallet as a reminder of where she came from. She volunteered at women's shelters, mentored young Latina entrepreneurs, and every Sunday, no matter how busy she was, she visited her mother's grave with fresh flowers. Isabella had built her life brick by brick, refusing to rely on anyone, especially men, which made her marriage to Daniel Martinez all the more surprising. They'd met at a charity gala in 2019. Daniel was recently divorced, charming in that casual way wealthy men often are, with silver hair and a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He pursued Isabella relentlessly, flowers every day, handwritten notes, surprise weekend trips to wine country. She resisted at first. She'd dated enough men to know when someone was too good to be true. But Daniel was patient. He listened when she talked about her business. He remembered small things, like how she took her coffee and that she hated surprise parties. After 6 months, she let her guard down. After a year, she married him. Her friends had concerns. Daniel was older, wealthier, and according to his ex-wife's divorce attorney, controlling. But Isabella brushed them off. She wasn't some naive girl. She was a grown woman who'd survived poverty and built an empire. She could handle Daniel Martinez, or so she thought. The first crack appeared 6 months after the wedding. Lucia noticed it during a lunch date, a tightness around Isabella's eyes, a hesitation before answering simple questions. When Lucia asked if everything was okay, Isabella laughed it off, but her laugh sounded hollow. Over the following months, the changes became harder to ignore. Isabella stopped posting on social media. She canceled client meetings. She stopped returning calls. When friends did see her, she was different, quieter, more careful with her words, constantly checking her phone. And then there was Daniel. He'd started showing up everywhere Isabella went. Coffee with a client? Daniel appeared. Dinner with Lucia? Daniel insisted on joining. He called it devotion. Lucia called it suffocation. But when she tried to talk to Isabella about it, her friend changed the subject. The girl who'd once told anyone who'd listen about her dreams had learned to keep her mouth shut. That should have been the warning. That should have been when someone intervened. But we always think we have more time than we do. The night before Isabella disappeared, she did something unusual. She called Lucia at 11 p.m., which she never did anymore. Her voice sounded strange, rushed, almost breathless. She said she needed to talk, that something had happened, but not over the phone. Could they meet for breakfast the next morning? Lucia said yes immediately, relief flooding through her. Finally, Isabella was ready to open up. They agreed to meet at their old favorite cafe at 8 a.m. Lucia went to bed that night feeling hopeful. She woke to 17 missed calls, and a world that had shifted on its axis. Isabella never showed up for breakfast. She never showed up anywhere again. Because somewhere between 11 p.m. and sunrise, Isabella Martinez vanished from her own life, leaving behind only a designer shoe and a husband who thought she'd gone for a run. Detective Maria Santos had worked homicide for 12 years, and she'd learned to trust her gut. And her gut told her that Daniel Martinez was lying. It wasn't any one thing, it was everything. The way he sat too calmly in the interview room. The way he answered questions about his missing wife with the emotional affect of someone discussing the weather. The way he kept checking his Rolex, as if this was just another inconvenient meeting cutting into his day. When Maria asked about their marriage, Daniel described it as perfect. When she asked about Isabella's state of mind, he said she'd been a little stressed about work. When Maria asked why he hadn't called the police immediately upon finding her car abandoned, he shrugged and said he thought maybe she'd gotten a ride with a friend. It was all too neat, too rehearsed. And then there was the surveillance footage from their home security system. Maria had watched it 3 times, and each time, the same detail made her skin crawl. At 5:47 a.m., you could see Isabella's silhouette moving past the bedroom window. At 5:53, her car started in the driveway. At 5:55, the driver's door opened. And then, for exactly 47 seconds, the camera went dark. When it came back online, the car was empty, the door was open, and Isabella was gone. Daniel claimed the system glitched sometimes. Maria didn't believe in convenient glitches. The break in the case came from an unexpected source. Isabella's laptop. Her assistant had brought it to the police, saying Isabella had asked her to hold on to it a week before she disappeared unusual. But the assistant hadn't thought much of it at the time. Forensic analysis revealed Isabella had been documenting everything. There were photos of bruises on her arms, dated and labeled. Screenshots of text messages from Daniel. Dozens of them, sent at all hours. Where are you? Who are you with? Answer me now. There was a draft email to a divorce attorney, never sent, outlining years of emotional abuse, financial control, and escalating threats. And there was a voice memo, recorded 3 days before she vanished. Isabella's voice shaking as she spoke. If something happens to me, I need people to know it wasn't an accident. Daniel said if I ever tried to leave him, I'd regret it. He said no one would believe me because he's respected in this community and I'm just the girl from East LA who got lucky. He said he'd destroy me. I'm not paranoid. I'm not crazy. I'm scared. And I don't know what to do. The recording ended with the sound of a door opening and Isabella quickly stopping the recording. Maria listened to that voice memo 50 times. Each time, she heard the same thing. A woman who knew she was in danger and couldn't find a way out. Armed with new evidence, police executed a search warrant on the Martinez estate. They found Daniel's personal vehicle in the garage, a black Mercedes he rarely drove, freshly detailed inside and out. But luminol revealed what cleaning couldn't erase. Traces of blood in the trunk, under the floor mat, and on the interior door handle. DNA analysis confirmed it was Isabella's. They found more in the house. Freshly painted walls in the garage, concrete recently poured in a section of the backyard near the pool house, and in Daniel's home office, a burner phone with a single contact labeled C. The text messages on that phone told a story Daniel never wanted revealed. For 6 months, he'd been corresponding with a woman named Catherine Wolfe, a former girlfriend who'd reached out after learning about his marriage to Isabella. The messages were affectionate at first, then intimate, then incriminating. 2 weeks before Isabella disappeared, Daniel had texted Catherine, "I'm handling it. She won't be a problem much longer." Catherine had responded with a heart emoji. When police brought her in for questioning, Catherine claimed she thought handling it meant divorce. But her phone's GPS data placed her in Newport Beach the morning Isabella disappeared. Her story was unraveling. So was Daniel's. The trial lasted 6 weeks, and every day, the courtroom was packed. Lucia sat in the front row, Isabella's mother's food stamp card clutched in her hand. Isabella's assistant had found it in her desk drawer and given it to Lucia, knowing how much it had meant to her friend. The prosecution built their case methodically. The surveillance footage, blackout, the blood evidence, the burner phone messages, the freshly poured concrete. They brought in experts who testified about coercive control and intimate partner violence. They played Isabella's voice memo for the jury, her words hanging in the air like a ghost demanding justice. Daniel's defense attorney tried to paint Isabella as unstable, her abuse claims as fabrications designed to win a favorable divorce settlement. But then the prosecution revealed their final piece of evidence. Ground-penetrating radar had detected human remains beneath the new concrete near the pool house. Excavation confirmed what everyone feared. Isabella Martinez, the girl who'd survived poverty and built an empire, who believed in hard work and happy endings, had been buried in her own backyard by the man who'd promised to love her. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Daniel Martinez was convicted of first-degree murder. Catherine Wolfe pled guilty to accessory after the fact. Neither showed remorse. At sentencing, Lucia read a victim impact statement that left no dry eyes in the courtroom. She talked about Isabella's laugh, her ambition, her generosity. She talked about the girl from East LA who'd refused to be defined by where she came from, who'd built something beautiful from nothing, who'd helped other women climb the same ladder she had. And she talked about how Isabella had died not because she was weak, but because she'd been strong enough to try to leave. "My best friend didn't vanish," Lucia said, her voice breaking. "She was erased by a man who couldn't stand that she didn't belong to him. But she's not gone. She's in every woman who's ever felt trapped. Every woman who's ever been told she's crazy for trusting her instincts. Every woman who's ever wondered if leaving would be more dangerous than staying. Isabella's story doesn't end with her death. It ends with every woman who hears it and decides she deserves better." The judge sentenced Daniel Martinez to life without parole. As they led him away, he glanced back at the courtroom one final time, and for just a moment, the mask slipped. What the gallery saw wasn't grief or remorse. It was rage. Rage that he'd been caught. Rage that Isabella had found a way to speak even after he'd silenced her. Rage that, in the end, the girl from East LA had won. Isabella Martinez believed in building her own happiness, brick by brick, never depending on anyone else. But in loving the wrong man, she learned that some prisons are built by people who claim to worship you. Her voice memo became evidence. Her courage became a cautionary tale. And her story became a reminder that the most dangerous place for a woman isn't a dark alley, it's often in her own home, with someone who says he loves her. Isabella wanted to be remembered for her success. Instead, she'll be remembered for her survival not in life, but in death, when her carefully documented truth made sure her killer couldn't walk free. Sometimes the strongest thing a woman can do isn't stay. It's making sure that if she can't leave alive, she leaves evidence behind. Isabella Martinez made sure the world knew her name. And in doing so, she made sure Daniel Martinez will spend the rest of his life hearing it echoed in a prison cell, a ghost he can never escape.